We are now finally concluding our God mode build for each and every character in Destiny 2. The last one we're going to need to cover is on the Hunter. And what's cool about this build is that you can be able to use 2 exotics for the armor pieces. So you can choose between which one you like to use. So again, for this build, you're going to be able to get tons of restoration, cure, and radiant all in one for this build. We're mainly going to be using our melee ability to give us radiant and also increases the duration for restoration and radiant. Let's first start with the exotic helmet. The one that I'm going to use for this build video is the exotic helmet called Assassin's Cowl. Here's what it does. Whenever you get a powered melee final blow, it would grant you invisibility and restores a portion of your health and shield. If you would get a finisher against a more powerful combatant, it would increase the duration of the invisibility and the amount of health and shields you have been restored. So this is the same thing as it was for the Warlock build video that I made recently. So you're mostly going to be using your melee abilities for this build. And the other exotic armor piece that you could use for this build is Shards of Galanor if you would like to get your super very quickly. Now let's head to the Hunter subclass, aka the Gunslinger. For the super, be sure to put Blade Barrage, because if you're one of those people that chose to put Shards of Galanor, those are very good 2 items to be paired with. And for your abilities, be sure to put Gambler's Dodge, because whenever you dodge near an enemy, you would get your melee ability back. Now for the melee. For this melee, I do believe this is the best knife for the Hunter and PvE. It's called the Knife Trick. Whenever you hit a target, it would once scorch the target and it would also make them ignite. For the grenade, be sure to put Healing Grenade because it would give you restoration and cure. On to the aspects. The first one is Knock 'em down. This one's going to be good for your super because we are using Blade Barrage, so it will launch more projectiles. So whenever your radiant final blows with your equipped throwing knife, fully refund your melee energy. The second aspect is on your mark. Precision final blows grants you and your nearby allies increased weapon handling and reload speed for a short duration, and it would also stack up to 3 times. Whenever you activate your class ability, it would immediately grant the maximum stacks of on your mark. So in total, we are going to be able to have 5 fragments in total. Now let's start with the first fragment. It's Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and your nearby allies radiant, and it would give you -10 discipline. This fragment is extremely good if you want to have unlimited knives. And also, FYI, whenever you're throwing your knives, if you want to use it infinitely, be sure to toss the knife and kill that target. Once you do, wait a couple seconds or 2, then throw it again. But if you hit a target that doesn't die, your melee ability will go away. For the second solar fragment I put is Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. So for this one, you're not going to have to worry about your class ability because of this fragment. And 1, we are going to be scorching targets with our solar weapon, and 2, we're going to be doing that again with our solar melee ability. The third solar fragment is Ember of Empyrean. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant effects applied to you, but it would give you -10 discipline. So this one will give you the ability to have infinite amounts of restoration and radiant. The fourth fragment is Ember of Solace. Radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. The fifth fragment is Ember of Ashes. You apply more scorch stacks to targets. Now let's head to the weapons. And for the kinetic weapon, you can use any special weapon you like, but for me, I'm using this Strand fusion rifle called the Scatter Signal because of the seasonal artifact mods. And the perks I do recommend going for is Overflow and Controlled Burst. For the Scatter Signal, there's actually 2 ways for you to proc these 2 buffs, which will give you the ability to stun anti-barrier champions. The first one is by picking up an Orb of Power, which will give your Strand weapons unraveling rounds, and 2 is by getting Radiant with your Sunshot or your melee ability. And if you guys would like to check out the build, of course the dim link will also be in the link in the description if you're interested. For the energy weapon, I'm using this solar hand cannon called the Sunshot, in which case this hand cannon is pretty busted this season, and if you don't have the catalyst for this Sunshot, all it would do is that it would increase your stats, primarily range and stability. For the power weapon, I did want to change it up a bit, so I chose to put this arc machine gun called Song of Irute. And the perks you would want to go for this LMG is Reconstruction and Sword Logic. So let's just say you don't have this LMG that I'm using for this build, you can also use a rocket launcher, primarily a solar rocket launcher if possible, because if you are using a rocket launcher, you can use this seasonal artifact mod, which will give you overload rocket launchers. If you did not know, rocket launchers will deal 80% increased damage to overload champions. What's cool about this machine gun is its origin trait called Cursed Thrall. After defeating a target with a melee attack, final blows with this weapon weapon cause targets to explode for a short duration. Now onto the seasonal artifact mods that I was using for this build. On the second column, I'm using Kindling Trigger. Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched combatants. And the next one is From Whence You Came. Increases ability damage to taken and scorned combatants. On the third column is Flint Striker. Rapid solar weapon precision hits and rapid solar weapon final blows grants Radiant. The next one is Heart of the Flame. Casting your super grants nearby allies Radiant and increases the damage of your super for each nearby ally. And the last one for the third column is Wished into Being. While your super is nearly fully charged, ability final blows spawns an orb of power. On the fourth column, the first one is Unraveling Orbs. Picking up an orb of power grants strand weapons unraveling rounds, which will give your strand weapons anti-barrier rounds as well. The next one is Revitalizing Blast. Causing damage with a solar ability weakens champions and bosses for a short duration. On the fifth column I'm using is Horde Shuttle. Damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. And last but not least is Rays of Precision. While Radiant solar precision final blows causes combatants to ignite. Now let's talk about which champions you can be able to stun. For this build, you can be able to stun Unstoppable because of our hand cannon and anti-barrier because of our fusion rifle. And for the stats, I do recommend going for Resilience because if you do have tier 10, it would give you a 30% damage reduction towards combatants. And if you do have tier 10 Discipline, it would decrease the cooldown from your grenades. And as what you guys are seeing here, these are the armor mods that I was using for this build. The main ones that I do want to mention is on the helmet. This one is called Hands On. You gain bonus super energy on melee kills, and also the next one, Dynamo, reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. So you're most likely going to be in close proximity with this build if you guys are into that. And also for the gauntlets, I am also using Impact Induction. Causing damage with a powered melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown, and also Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack. So if I were to melee a target with my melee ability, it would decrease the cooldown for my grenades, and it would also do the same thing for my class ability as well. So it's like a 2-in-1 basically. For most mods right now, for example Heavy Handed, there's a cooldown for this as well. So let's just say I have 1 as what you guys are seeing here. The cooldown will be 10 seconds, but if I'm using 3, it would actually be 1 second. So if you guys would like to generate tons of orbs of power, be sure to put 3 Heavy Handed if you guys would like. But for me, I'm just putting 1 because I would rather care about my base cooldown rather than producing more orbs of power. And same thing goes for Reaper for the cloak. So let me show you guys how you can be able to use this build. It's pretty simplistic, but I just want to let you guys know. All you would have to do is melee a target to grant you Radiant, and also if you do want to get your restoration even quicker, be sure to hit yourself with your healing grenade to start up the restoration. Once you do, be sure to get kills with either your melee ability or your Sunshot to extend the duration even further. And also be sure to scorch targets if you do want to decrease the cooldown for your Gambler's Dodge, so you can keep on spamming that non-stop. And that's pretty much it basically. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe. I'll greatly appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, evening, or afternoon. Take care and peace. Join the Discord.